Welcome back to Yoga Express. It's all about moving the body to still the mind. My name is Banu. I'm your host for this program. We literally have a full house today. We have an amazing crew in the control room and a beautiful group of folks right here. And I say that including myself as well. We all have so much positive energy, so much character that we transmit between the two, all of us, between the eight of us, between the nine of us, including our facilitator as well, Malik Parker. Malik, thank you so much for making us all look so good. When I say all, I mean our director, Angela Visido. We have Akram Abiskaroon on the robotic camera. We have Miguel Mercado on the switch. And we have Rosedale. Let me get Rosedale's last name right. Rosedale, you're going to have to tell me your last name at another point, but thank you so much to our amazing crew for staying with us. Right here in the studios, we have to my extreme right, we have Chris Hall. Chris is on our show for the very first time, so welcome, Chris. Welcome to the show. Susan McNamara. Susan is an amazing teacher of chair yoga, but she also teaches gentle yoga. So I love your energy, Susan. Thank you for coming back. You've been with us before. And I've saved the big secret for last, Drue Michael. Drue is an amazingly high energy yoga teacher. And Drue, I know I'm going to be sore after today, but we're looking forward to the stretch. Drue, before we move on, just a little bit about yourself. Refresh our viewers.
Yes, so I'm a yoga teacher in New York. I teach mostly with gyms, New York Sports Club and 24-hour fitness. I've recently started teaching new teacher trainers at a studio in Queens called Zen and Yoga. So it's a 200-hour program. It starts up again in this September, so I'm very excited.
Beautiful. If you want to reach Drue, you will see his credits come on the screen every now and then, even while he's teaching. And every now and then, Drue, feel free, if we don't get fully into a posture, Drue will show you the full extent of the posture. Before we move on, just a few seconds to plug in my little postcard, which the camera will focus in a few moments. It's right there in the front as well. So we have a very simple sequence. I'm going to hold it out, whoever can see it. If not, you can just go visit my website, yogaxpress.com, YOGAXPRESS.com. Drue, we're all yours.
All right, exciting. So my topic, the theme for today's class has to do with discovering the pelvis. So liberating, I like to say liberation of the pelvis because we sometimes forget that this structure moves separately from the other structures in our body.
I never thought of it that way. Wow.
So a lot of times in my classes, I'll begin seated like this.
Right.
And you could be seated on your shins or on your mula bandha, it doesn't matter. But you can start to feel the separation already between your rib cage and your pelvis. And you can move the ribs forwards and backwards or side to side, whatever works for you. And just starting to kind of, you're also, you're turning the spine, but you're also getting the creative juices flowing too. So I love when people move the way their body wants them to move, right? So we're just beginning a conversation with our bodies. We're talking, they're listening, they're talking, we're listening. Mostly we're learning how to listen, right, through the body. And so
You're not a poet as well. That's so poetic.
Well, I am a poet, but very, very that's a side job. And you're also feeling, of course, your connection to your mula bandha, which is located right underneath you, the root of your pelvis. I'll talk a little bit about bandhas maybe in the next episode.
Sure. Or even while we're in the posture. That's fine.
I always like to talk about the bandhas.
Absolutely.
They're my best friends. So the first pose we'll do, extending our legs. So we're basically going to do this pose seated, and then later we'll do it standing.
Okay.
So this is called Paschimottanasana, and I want you to start by feeling your sitting bones And I always ask my students to get really up close and personal with their body. So I ask them to touch their sitting bones, feel it.
Right.
For me, that helps me to learn if I can actually be like hands-on, literally hands-on the body. And it's our body, we should be able to touch it, right?
Right.
And so if you need to, you can bend your knees. You want to also feel your heels on the floor. And if you can, flex the feet so the toes come up and back towards you. And then bring your arms up. And just notice if there's any part of your pelvis that feels like it's starting to fall backwards. If you're rounding in your lower back, if you feel like you're on your tailbone. You could even explore that if you wanted to come back a little bit. And then you feel the lower abdominals engage. And here we are back up on the sitting bones. Now, if you have a very bony butt, some people do, I don't, you could put a towel under your seat. You could roll up your mat a little bit for this part. And you're going to inhale, look up with your heart, look up with your third eye. And then exhale, and see if you can reach for those toes, or just the ankles, or just the shins. And try to keep your feet flexed. And then see if you can release your head. So we have to keep the back of the neck long if we can. And then I always, again, the creative juices, I always invite everyone to feel a little bit of a sway if they want, from side to side in their upper body. And you pretend like the head is a pendulum. And then we're going to do 3 undulations. So as you inhale next, think about reaching your heart forward and look up with your eyes only, not the whole face. Keep the back of the neck long. And then exhale, releasing the head again. Now, if you have a hold of your feet, you can pull the toes back with your arm strength. Otherwise, just try to keep your feet flexed. Let's do 2 more undulations. Inhale, lengthening your heart forward. And exhale, release. Beautiful. One more time. Very nice. And then sitting yourself back up into what we call Dandasana. So we're straight like a staff. The legs are straight, the spine is straight, and now the pelvis is neutral. Before, when we came forward, it was in what's called anterior tilt. So it's a tipping forward of the pelvis. Now we've come back to neutral. So let's bend our knees, and let's bring the feet together. Maybe we can stagger a little bit here to fit in. So we're making the shape of a diamond with our legs. Feet are together like a little book, and you still feel your sitting bones on the floor, knees apart. It's okay if there's a little bit of space. At home, if you have yoga blocks, you could put them under your thighs to support yourself. And this one especially, we want to try to get the heels pretty close to the top of the inseam, but you'll notice as they get closer, you might start to kind of fall back again. So you want to sit yourself up nice and tall. Pokey sitting bones, I call it. And you lift the heart, open the throat a little bit, and then start to feel your ribs coming forward. Now this is again where some people will start to fall back. They think they're moving forward, but they're actually moving back. So you want to master the sitting up first. Then the ribs come just a little bit forward, and then you can release your head into Baddha Konasana. And again, the swaying is possible here. I love this swaying. It starts to help me understand a little bit better how my torso connects into the pelvis, right? So the side bodies have to open up in order for us to kind of discover our forward folds. And here also, if I can come on to Chris's mat a little bit, you can place your right hand down and maybe even just reach your left arm up. It only has to go straight up. It can come up and over, but I don't want your elbow to bend. I want you to keep this kind of circular arc through the arm. Let your head be heavy. You're feeling the side body as well as that connection, like I said, into the pelvis. And let's come back through center. Inhale. And exhale. Beautiful. And let's go over to the other side too. So the left hand comes down to the left. The right arm comes up. You might notice as you're reaching here that your right sitting bone is coming up off the mat. You just want to press through your left hand. So you keep both sitting bones firmly planted. Let your head go. Let that side shoulder, side of neck, I should say top of shoulder, side of neck, open up as well. And then coming right back to center. And just see if you've got a little bit more space now that you've opened up your side bodies. Beautiful. Now before we come up to standing, let's press ourselves back to seated pose. And then we're going to close the knees. And let your feet be maybe like 2 fists apart. You're going to take your hands right behind your seat on the floor, fingertips forward, and then just see if you can lift your pelvis up off the mat into a little bit of a tabletop. Now be careful if you have any neck problems. Don't let your head just fall back. You want to keep space so you feel the connection of your chin a little bit to your chest. Lift that pelvis. One more time, inhale. And exhale. Go ahead and sit your pelvis back down. Beautiful.
Question?
Yeah.
If we want to do a modification, is there something you can suggest?
Well, I would actually bring the feet a little bit closer. You could still bring your hands back, and you could just arc the heart upward.
Without lifting the body?
Without lifting the pelvis, yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
And this is a lot of, requires a little bit of strength in the arms, too. So if you had not so much upper body strength, and you're just new to the yoga practice, that would be a better option for you, too. So let's bring ourselves up to standing. Some of you can cross the ankles and come over the knees. If not, just bring your legs around behind you. Let's actually start on all fours to begin. So I wanted this to be a little bit more organic, not right on up to standing. So let's do a few cat and cows. And actually, this is a perfect opportunity for us to feel out our pelvis. So behind me, I have my toes tucked underneath so I can feel my arches. My hands are spread. They're slightly turned out. So my pointer fingers go forward. And then I can keep this kind of elbow to rib, side rib connection, right? You can bend your elbows a little bit. Feel the biceps and the triceps. And then watch out for the shoulders. You don't want them to come up. You want to keep the shoulders nice and wide in the back of the neck, really long, right? And then you can pull your belly button up and arch your back like a cat. Look down at your lap. And then inhale, sink the belly down and look up. So this is pretty basic. A lot of people do this in the beginning of their class. It's called cat and cow. And in your cat and cow, you can even get creative again. You could bring your hips from one side to the other.
Like a real cat.
Like a real cat.
Yeah.
A dancing kitty cat. And you could even move your ribs here from side to side. Again, we're just acknowledging the fact that we're made up of many pieces, not just one stiff board, right? Like sometimes we feel like. And you could even make circles with your ribs. So we did a version of this when we were seated in the beginning of this episode, right?
With the hips, yeah.
But I really want you to think, when I come with my belly sinking down in my cow pose, my pelvis is in what we called before anterior tilt, right? It's tipping forward. But then when I lift my belly up, I'm neutralizing my pelvis. So you can tip your pelvis forward, you can tip it back, which is a little bit harder for most people, posterior tilt. And then you can have it right in the middle, which is where we want to find it when we do things like plank. So let's not do plank. What we can do is hands at the top of the mat. We're going to do a downward facing dog on our way up. So a little bit of bend in the elbows. I want you to lift your knees up. And at any point, if you need to take a break, you can let those knees go right back down. And I just want you to pedal out your feet. So you're melting one heel down into the earth and then the other heel down. Now I'm looking at the camera, but what I really want at home is for you to let your head go so you can look back at your toes. So every pose we do is kind of like made better when you let go of your head, right? When you stop thinking about it so much. And we can become centered in other parts of our body today, hopefully the pelvis. And so here I'm feeling my pelvis tipping forward, like I was in a cow with a saggy belly. My sitting bones are reaching up. Beautiful. Now take one more breath. And exhale. That was too nice. We need to do another one. Inhale. Beautiful. And now start to walk your hands back towards your feet. That's a little bit more gentle than walking feet towards hands. And again, that helps us build some of our upper body strength. And so now you find yourself hanging over your legs. I'm going to come a little bit forward of you guys. And just let your head go. You know, most people, if they can't touch their toes, they're like, oh, I can't do yoga, I'm not flexible. But it's really not about touching your toes. And it's really more than okay to bend your knees, right? So I always ask my students to bend their knees, because otherwise what happens is they lock their knees out and they're way back in their pelvis, right? Their pelvis is way behind their heels. So bend your knees at home. Let your head go, let your arms go. Even if you're really high in the pose, that's the most important time to bend those knees. And I start to feel a little bit more weight in the balls of my feet. And you'll see here, most people want neutral pelvis, right? They want to be in this kind of like cat spine. But I want you to tip your pelvis. So imagine if you touch your sitting bones, right below there, there's this little space where the hamstrings connect into your glutes. I want you to really tip that pelvis forward and make that space even longer. With knees bent, you'll start to feel your belly come onto your thighs. You can shake your head, no. And this is just as good as getting a little readjustment at the chiropractor, right? But we're using the weight of our head. It's a little bit less traction, only about 8 to 9 pounds, right? Pulling down on the spine.
I was going to ask, isn't that true that it weighs as much as a bowling ball?
Oh, yeah. My head probably weighs more than that. And so this, continue to feel the weight into the balls of your feet, that anterior tip of your pelvis. Now you're going to bring your hands up onto your shins, right underneath your kneecaps. Then I want you to press through your arms and feel the heart and the top of your head reach forward. So we're trying to find a flat back here. Now again, let me show you what happens here is that people find this cat spine again. It's because they don't want to let their pelvis tension go, right? But we actually really do. This is going to alleviate a lot of pain in the lower back, some hip pain possibly, help you sleep better. So we tip that pelvis forward and this lower back is nice and flat. And we're using our lower abdominals here, pulling them up off the lap. Keep those knees bent and exhale. And that's a little bit fiery too, right? So we want to make sure we're breathing. Let's try that once more. This is called Ardha Uttanasana. So press through your shins, come up halfway. Feel that tabletop. And then exhale into Uttanasana. Beautiful. Now the next thing, and I'm going to keep facing the side here for this next part because we're going to roll up through our spine. But we got to talk about the bandhas. Underneath our pelvis, we have these muscles. You can feel the lifting up of your pelvic floor. And as I do that, I also feel my belly scooping up off my thighs, pressing my heels down. I don't let go of my belly, and I'm slowly lifting up. I'm slowly rolling up through my spine. My chin is coming towards my chest. I'm still lifting my root, right? That's protecting my lower back here. And then I come all the way up to standing. Now, the other option, if you did have pain in your spine when you were rolling up, is to just find that halfway up and then stand up with a flat back, right? You come up to standing, and here we are in mountain pose. How are we feeling so far?
Good.
Beautiful.
We're still alive? Good.
Absolutely.
We're still breathing?
Yep.
So feel your feet on the floor. We're going to do maybe 1 or 2 more poses. And so I always talk about the importance of feeling the floor, because some people, they get nervous, they're not thinking about the body, they're not having that communication, and it's like you're levitating, but not in a good way, right? So we really want to recognize that we're earthlings, we have gravity, we're heavy, and we're expansive, right? We take up space. So bringing the arms up, and already we can see that our pelvis wants to tip forward. So basically we just want to tell our pelvis what's what, right? So keeping your pelvis here, instead of tipping forward, pulling your belly back. Keep your pelvis neutral. And then stand on up, press through your heels, and then bend the knees again, keeping the pelvis neutral. So I say that it's like I'm shrinking the length of my belly, and I'm growing the length of my lower back. And instead of telling myself to engage my abdominals like my personal trainer would do, right? I shrink in the front and I lengthen in the back. Shoulders are away from your ears, palms are facing one another, and then coming right back up. And now we're going to look down at our feet. We're going to come into Utkatasana, chair pose. So again, a little bit fire here. The toes will touch, the big toes, and my heels have about 1 inch or 2 in between them. As I bend my knees, I want to sit back a little bit, but I don't want to reach forward. I want to keep reaching up, and I want that shrinking of the belly to happen. So I'm still in what's called neutral pelvis, right? There's no tipping forward here. It's a lot of work. So if you're at home and you're like, oh, I don't like this, we're all having the same thought right now, right? It's very fiery, and it's also nicknamed awkward pose for a reason, right? There's a lot going on. If you look down and you can't see your toes beyond your kneecaps, I want you to sit back even further. More of the belly. Engage the belly. Pull it in. Reaching up with your heart, looking up with your eyes. One more breath. And then diving back over. Uttanasana. Very nice. Keep that bend in your knees. If you want here, you can sway a little bit from side to side. Beautiful. Hands on your shins. Come up halfway. And exhale, release. Let's plant the hands down. And let's see if we can step our feet back, even just a little bit, one at a time, eventually into your downward facing dog. So for your downward facing dog, depending on how tall you are, you're gonna try to take up most of your mat. I'm pretty tall, so I take up almost the whole mat. Some people might not take up the whole thing. And then feeling again, your pelvis is tipping forward. You can bend your knees. You're letting your head go. Inhale. And exhale. Beautiful. Go ahead and bring your knees down for a little rest. You can bring your knees wide. And then sitting back, sitting bones on heels. Reaching your arms forward. And then see if you can let your head just release onto the floor. And so you're reaching your hands forward. You guys stay in the pose. I'm just going to talk a little bit. You're reaching your hands forward to lengthen the upper body, but there's a little bit of pressure. You know, you're pressing through your fingertips so that you can keep your seat lowering down towards your heels. So mostly what I see in my class is a lot of, you're doing a really good job here, Chris, because your seat is down. Your head's not quite touching, but that's okay. You could always put a block under your forehead. What I see a lot is face down and the booty's up in the air, right? We want to do the other thing. You actually look great. And Banu has her knees pretty far apart, so her ribs can fit in between her legs, right? So that's a really good thing to do if you're new to this pose. Okay, so go ahead and press yourselves back up. And we're just going to come to sit on our shins for a moment. Feel the ground again. Pelvis is neutral. Belly is engaged. Let's bring our arms up. Let's do one little heart opener to end our practice. So the arms are up, and this could be it, right? This could be your heart opener. Also, if it was a lot for you to sit on your feet like this, you could also sit up. You could stand up on your knees. You could put some padding under your, yeah, you could bend the, fold the mat up and put your knees on it for padding. So there's lots of things you can do. We're very thrifty as yogis, right? And I just want you to feel, again, belly in, shorten the belly, lengthen the lower back, and then see if you can just lean back a little bit. So we're hinging right at the knees. The whole body from the knees up hinges back just a little bit. And then forward. And then back. And then forward. Let's do that one more time. Back. And then forward. And then some of you might take your hands just to the lower back. Fingertips down behind the lower back. Don't let your belly go. Pull your belly into your hands. So it's like you're pulling it through the spine into your hands. And then just lift your heart a little bit. Try to squeeze your elbows together. How's that feel? He's getting a workout. And try not to let the head
My
fall back.
elbows are not getting closer either.
They look great. So that's something we're working on. We don't have to be there. We're on our way, right? It's not about getting to the destination. It's about the journey.
It's a journey. I like that.
Yeah. Chin comes back to chest. Belly comes back in. And then just sit back down. Beautiful. And if you needed another child's pose, you could release the head down. Just to kind of counter the back bend that we just did. Awesome. So that's just the beginnings of this kind of discovery of the pelvis. Obviously, we didn't do a ton of hip opening, but that's another aspect. The pelvis has different things it can do. It can tip, so it's about neutral or tipping forward or backward. There's this kind of movement of the pelvis, right, or side to side. There's twisting. There's lots of things going on in the pelvis.
I love those tippings. Since we have the luxury, our director just gave us a cue. We have the luxury of 4 more minutes of stretching and maybe another minute to wind down. So would you like to take us back through the hip movements?
Yeah, totally.
Unless you've got something more planned for us.
No, I could
Okay.
I could do whatever.
I really
yeah.
enjoyed that. That was
Totally.
really good.
So, what we worked on thus far, and let's come back to sitting on our seat. We could even rediscover our pose here, Hashimo. Because when we were standing up and folding over, that's the same pose,
Right.
but it's called Uttanasana when we're standing. So again, feel your sitting bones. After stretching, you'll find that you can embody your poses a little bit more deeply. So it's never a bad idea to redo a pose, right?
Right.
So the arms come up, and then you exhale and release back over. Let your head go. Just we're asking our body, what is this like now? Is it a little deeper than before? Maybe some of the poses created a little bit more tension. Maybe it's not as deep as before. Lots of things can happen as we shift things around in the body. And remember, here we're in our forward tilt, or forward tilt of the pelvis, anterior tilt. And then coming back up to sit in Dandasana, and this is our neutral pelvis. So we're shrinking the belly, growing the lower back. And then, well, posterior tilt would be that thing where you roll back, right?
That's a
onto your
tough one.
tailbone.
So what muscles are we using? What group?
Well, here I'm using my root underneath, my mula bandha.
Okay.
I'm scooping out my belly, my uddiyana bandha,
So get my feet up.
and chin to chest. Yeah, and I'm flexing my feet. This is a big thing for me. I like to flex my feet. Some people like to point,
No, I like the flex too. I just
Yeah.
couldn't get it up.
but this rolling back on your tailbone, we do this a lot more than we know.
Right.
And we probably do a version of it when we're sitting at our desk and we're like this, right, at our computer. So I don't always teach a lot of.
Right.
It is really good for the
Good for
core.
the
And if you
belly.
do Pilates, you'll definitely get a lot of that, like rolling up and down kind of thing, yeah.
So am I inhaling as I go back?
For me, I'm exhaling,
Exhaling.
and then I inhale to come back up. So I'm just making this part up, but this is fun, right? We're making this part
Well,
up.
that's what it is.
Chris
Just
loves
do
it.
what feels good.
Yeah, totally. This would be a really good thing to do at the beginning of your practice to embody your bandhas, your little energy locks, the three, the root, the belly, and the throat, as I mentioned. We could just do this for hours.
My heels don't come up that easily though.
The heels don't come up?
Not as easily because I need to strengthen what you call the core,
Yeah.
the 12 pack.
I like to keep the
Are
heels
we
on the
supposed
floor.
to take the heels up?
No, I like them on the floor.
So I think we've had a pretty good stretch, Drew. That
Yeah,
was an amazing
I'm
workout.
schwitzing.
We just got the cue from our director. We had
Very
about half a
nice.
minute.
Very
It feels
nice.
really
Excellent.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
Chris, how do you feel?
Wonderful.
Feels good?
Just wonderful.
I'd like to acknowledge our amazing crew as well. So we have Angela Visido, our director. We have Akram, Miguel, and Rosedale. Thank you so much. We're going to have credits for everyone coming up in just a moment. On behalf of Susan McNamara to my left and Chris Hall to my extreme right, we'd like to also thank our guest teacher today, Drue Michael. Drew, that was a great workout. Very
Thank
simple,
you.
very relaxing. And Malik Parker, our facilitator, thank you so much for staying with us, for putting up with us, especially me. We really appreciate it. We're going to have our rolling credits up in just a moment. Meanwhile, we're going to do our own thing. So if there's anything we want to feel that we need to balance ourselves. Are we good to go? Thank you. That was a beautiful fade. Thank you, Angela and the team.
That was very nice, Drew.
Thank you.
Really,
Really
very
felt
nice.
Yeah.
Felt
I
very
You
take
really
it.
know how to take people through it. It's really wonderful.
Well, I
really
like to give directions. I like to be very detail
did great.
oriented, and I like to take the beginning of class really slowly.
Right.
I think you got to build up from the ground, so it's
Exactly.
like
I have
Oh, we're all
This
very
is just a
appreciative of
perfect
that.
example of how gentle yoga can really, you
Exactly.
can feel it.
And you
Yeah.
can get the most effect out of the
Yeah,
gentlest
yes.
moves.
Yeah, and then when you do, I mean, when I went and touched my toes the second time at the end of the class, it was much further than the first time.
yeah.
True.
That's I mean when you practice with some of my teachers, it's vinyasa, but they get you into these crazy poses, and you're like,
Too
how do you
fast,
do
too
that?
We don't
fast.
have to. We
But
If you
yeah.
do it this way, then you can get into a more,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Right, that's